guys, my name is Sylvia Oko from Bhesp Empowerment and Support Program, and I'm here with very beautiful ladies from Sisonke. And please introduce yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Loyiso Saliso, but please feel free to call me Lolo like everybody else. I am from South Africa, representing the organization called Sisonke National Movement in South Africa, which is a sex-led movement in South Africa that advocates for the health, human rights and justice of sex workers. And I also have expertise in gender-based violence and femicide, and former initiator of #JewelShutdown 2018 in South Africa. Lovely to be here.
Nice. Thank you so much for having us, Lola. And our beautiful Zinkle.
Thank you. Almost got it.
Alright, so hello, hi to everybody. My name is Zinke Cholwana. I am also from South Africa. I am representing Sisonke National Movement. As Lola has said, it is the biggest sex work-led movement in South Africa. And my job there is I am the advocacy officer. I am also an African feminist. I'm a full believer in intersectional feminism. Overall, I represent the sex workers, the whores, as they would say.
Sex workers.
Of course.
Oh, thank you so much, ladies. So, maybe I should just give a brief introduction of why I had to have these two ladies here with us. Bhesp Empowerment and Support Program is planning to have the biggest conference on femicide next year in April. So we just want to touch base with our sisters from South Africa, and we just want to understand what is it like to be a woman in South Africa, to be a woman who's feeling some type of an insecure woman in South Africa, because sometimes I feel like femicide or whatever is happening in among women in all their diversities is strange. I don't know, for lack of a better term, I really don't know how to put it, but because people are quiet about it. So I would just want to understand, what is it like in South Africa as women in South Africa, as sex workers in South Africa?
I think as sex workers and just generally women, because I also feel that when it comes to gender-based violence and femicide, we should not box ourselves to sex work women, LGBT women, and so forth. It's women overall, regardless of their sexuality or what work they do, that are impacted and affected by gender-based violence and femicide. And currently in South Africa, we have a crisis, like in Kenya, like in other parts of the continent and the world. We are unfortunately and tragically the rape capital of the world. Our femicide statistics are on the increase every single day. We do live in fear. I always say that as South African women and even children, young girls, adolescent girls and young women, and children generally, we are mourning ourselves when we are alive because we are not safe in our homes. We get killed in our homes. We're not safe at work. We get sexually harassed at work with no justice. We're not safe in the streets where there's a lot of people walking around because we get catcalled and harassed there as well. And also, at the most, we're not even safe at police stations because we've had cases of women being killed with protection orders in their hands at police stations by their perpetrators. And there's also no justice because when the system is not working for us, we end up fighting for ourselves. But even when we do fight for ourselves, we become the perpetrators at the end while trying to protect ourselves and our children from an abuser. And so we find a lot of women who are in jail today because they were protecting themselves and had enough because the system was failing us. And that is also another issue, is that the system is literally failing us. A lot of women have no faith in the system when it comes to reporting because you get re-victimized by police. They tell you go back home, solve it out with your partner. There's also the cultural elements of family, especially our African families, where they tell you as a wife that no, you must stay, stick it out. You've been there, you will change, and all those kinds of things.
You can pray for your marriage.
Pray for your marriage. If a child is molested in the household, it gets swept under the carpet. There's no accountability across board when it comes to perpetrators. So that is the situation that we are in South Africa. It is a crisis. It has been declared a national pandemic. We are in a state of emergency as women in the country because literally all our constitutional human rights are violated on a daily basis. So we're not free.
Yeah. And I really don't understand why globally people are not seeing this as a pandemic. Because if you look at the statistics, and I would want Lolo to talk about, Zinhle to talk about the statistics in South Africa. If you look at every African country right now, it is the numbers are one thing. Women are being killed day by night, regardless of who they are, what they do. You're a doctor, you're a sex worker, you're a lawyer. Women are being killed out here, and everyone is quiet about it. I don't know, and I love the fact that you started the hashtag End Femicide in South Africa. That is kudos for you.
Oh no, actually, with End Femicide, it started here
in Kenya.
With the sex workers, and so it moved from there, whereby we've now come together, from the different countries, South Africa, Tanzania, everywhere, to say there needs to be a hashtag
total shutdown,
End Femicide Africa, but also having initiated and been part of the women who mobilized for the 2018 hashtag the Total Shutdown March, which really gave hope, because policies, there was a greater look and analysis on policies. Also, the government allowed us to have the first ever gender-based violence and femicide conference. So it birthed a lot of things, but then the thing is that now we are also stagnant within the hashtag Total Shutdown, and also the Total Shutdown Kenya. It moved to Kenya as well. And with all those efforts that we've done, there is still nothing happening, and we just still keep mobilizing ourselves with hashtag End Femicide, hashtag TTS, and all other movements that are there. And I feel like it's a time whereby we also should not be working in silos anymore. These hashtag groups, these Me Too's, let's come together, because we are literally in the same boat where we are fighting for our existence.
Tell me about the statistics. You were talking about in our other conversation, we were talking about the statistics of the femicide cases in South Africa. Please tell us more about that.
Okay, so right now I won't be able to give you exact numbers. What I do want to mention though is the nature of those statistics, right? So are they a true reflection of what is happening on the ground? One of the first gaps in terms of data collecting, it starts with the police when they collect evidence. Now, what we have also found was that with the police, they will often just categorize it as a murder, as a homicide, and there isn't that what we would call desegregated data that says specifically this is a femicide statistic, right? The other thing is that there are organizations such as Women for Change that will do online surveys, right? So if you go to Women for Change, they are very active on social media, on Instagram. So anybody who's interested, you can check out Women for Change. And what they did recently is that they did a survey about the experiences in terms of reporting cases to the police, right? So it covered questions such as, how many did you report a case, right? So, and there was a high number of women that didn't even report the cases. And then going on, so if you did report the case, how do you think it was handled? Was it handled professionally? With the officer, were they sensitized, or were they stigmatizing you as secondary victimization? Again, there was a very significantly high number of respondents who said that it was stigmatizing. Was there a follow-up? Majority of the respondents said that there wasn't a follow-up. I'm one of them. My case never got followed up, right? And so if my file is sitting away somewhere collecting a file, am I even counted in terms of the statistics, right? So when there are official statistics by the SAPS that will say there's this and this number, how reliable is it? I don't think it's quite reliable. I also think that there should be more investment in collecting the data. And this is where investment in community-led organizations is needed. Because we are part of the communities. We know where to go. We know how to collect this data. Rural areas as well. There's a huge gap in terms of collecting data on GBV femicide cases that are happening in rural areas as well. There are community-based organizations that can reach those cases. The problem is that there isn't enough investment. And so this is where governments, we feel like, should be working with community-based organizations, because at the end of the day, we are doing their job for them.
Yes.
Mostly internationally donor funded, which for the local governments should be an embarrassment, because how do you have other people outside funding organizations to do your job in your own country? You see. So in as much as there is data there, and I would encourage the viewers to also do some research on it, look for GBV organizations to find those statistics. However, please keep in mind that even these statistics are not a true reflection of what's happening on the ground.
And that brings me back to something we were discussing the other day on the value of data. And data is the new currency right now. And how is the government using our data? How is the community using our data? How can we as community ensure that our data is protected, our data is safe, and make sure that we are utilizing the data in a rightful way, you know? So when it comes to the femicide cases, you'll go to a police station, as Zinke is saying, you go to a police station and say, hey, I was raped. I need to report a case. And they're like, excuse you, who are you? May we help you? Are you the fan? Like, we need to have a way of how we can have everything in one system, so that if the government or if the police, if the law enforcers are not trying to help us, we'll put them to account. And just one last question is what are you looking forward in the Nairobi International Femicide Conference? Because we would really like to have South Africa part of us. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think first of all, it is a brilliant concept that you have come up with in terms of hosting a regional, an African femicide conference. It's very important that, one, as I said, we do dismantle the silo syndrome. There is a war within our countries by men or perpetrators to women and children who end up being the majority victims. However, there is also an attack that's coming from the anti-gender, anti-feminist, and anti-key population movements that is forged on us. And one thing I always say about those movements is that their strength is that they are united. They're united in a hatred. They are united in a particular agenda to destroy people's lives who have done nothing to them. And I think what we need to do as well is dismantle the silo syndrome, so we're doing the same work and fighting for the same objective, but we want to work in that corner. We want to be better at that. So I feel like these kinds of conferences are ones which actually form part of the dismantling the silo syndrome agenda. But also bringing in women from across the continent to understand the different contexts in our countries. Because what is happening in South Africa with femicide might not necessarily be the same in terms of how are we killed, how are we targeted, in Kenya, for example. And so it's a good space for us to come together and share experiences, best practices from each country, but share our reality and share our stories. I feel that it needs to be a space that is going to be safe. I look forward to that. I know we always talk about safe space, and they end up not being safe. I hope it does become an intentionally and consistently throughout the duration of the conference safe space, because GBVF is a sensitive topic. I'm a survivor of gender-based violence myself, almost became a statistics of femicide. And so when we tell these stories, we relive them and we trigger ourselves. So I'm looking forward to the collaborations that will come from that as well. But I'm mostly looking forward to how are we going to strategically engage in terms of how do we then move forward as a collective, as a femicide or end GBVF, movement that's coming from this country to hold our governments accountable, as you've said. The other day we spoke when we came to visit you about how we need to do things that we've never done before. I'm tired of protesting because it's expected that we're going to protest. Let's look at other things that we have not done that have worked in other external countries. Things that have possibilities of high chances of working. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to new thinking, to new minds. I'm looking forward to diversity as well, because we like to have spaces where we say it's just the older generation, the dinosaurs of activism. I want to see the young voices in there. So this can also be a part of whereby we also bridge the gap, the intergenerational gap, because young girls are vulnerable, especially in African communities, because we don't talk about these stories with our girls. We don't tell them, listen, watch out. When you get into an Uber, make sure you sit at the back, on the back side of the passenger seat, those kinds of things. And so talking about that, I hope that we will have some people who will tell us how do we safeguard ourselves when we're out in the streets as well. But I also would like to see some funders and donors, because we see the donor space shifting in what they are prioritizing. And if they're going to shift away from GBVF, when we have a continental, a regional crisis or a global crisis on that issue, it raises a bit of concern that donors need to re-evaluate, because you cannot talk about HIV without talking about GBV. You cannot talk about SRHI without talking about GBV. So let's also have conversations and rope in a couple of donors and experts in the space to tell us how do we make sure that this movement and the funding of the GBV fight does actually not die out with what is currently happening and when it comes to donor funding and funding cuts.
Great. Donor accountability. Yes.
And for you, Zinke, what am I expecting? Well, there's a lot of things. I think Ulolo has touched on a lot, but I would also like to see the space being more inclusive. And in any space that I am in, I always make it a point to bring forward GBV against women and children with disabilities.
Correct.
That is often a community that we often leave behind, even in our own activist spaces. In our programming and in our spaces, just in terms of accessibility, the first thing, accessibility for, people with disabilities, even from reporting a case, is very, very difficult. If we're trying to understand the experiences, the wide range of experiences of survivors of GBV, we also need to identify the gaps that are there, right? And this is all strategic thinking. So I think even when the agenda is being set out, I would hope that there are parts where are very strategic focused, right? So we all sit in a room. We map out, what are our long-term goals, our medium-term, what are the short wins that we can have, who are our allies, so that those kinds of intense strategic conversations, but also balance it with healing spaces. We have experience in attending conferences where the focus is on the strategic and your brain gets tired. Your brain really gets tired. So let's also balance it with healing spaces for genuine, conversation. Hold space for people that might get triggered. Let's have professionals that are there to guide us through how to handle your triggers, right? You don't want to leave the space feeling more triggered and you feel like your wounds have been opened without providing that bandage for those wounds. So there's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of excitement also. I think this is such an important dialogue or conference that we need to have as African women. We will read about our experiences in articles, and online, and we don't have a full understanding of the context just from that. Right. So this is where now we come together, as different countries, as different regions, and understand each other's context, but also what can we learn from each other, right? So, in terms of policy, what has worked in one country what advice can we give? I think one best practice we can all learn from is from #Total Shutdown, because as a result, there was a policy that was put in place. There was the conference that was there. Even though the implementation is lacking, but we should still take that as an achievement. So where can other countries, what can they do to lead to some policy development? Because the policy, once it's developed, then that's also a way to hold governments accountable. It counts as your evidence-based advocacy to say that, listen, Ramaphosa, you signed this. You stood up on a podium and said that we will address GBV as an epidemic, but that has not been done yet. There's a lot that we can even discuss. I mean, you can sit here for 3 hours and have these conversations. But, what I do want to highlight is creating a space for inclusivity, a productive, strategic space, and a place for healing. Those would be my top 3 things.
Oh, ladies, I do not want to water down what you guys have said. Those are very, very. You see, I'm even getting goosebumps.
Oh wow!
I swear, I don't know why, but I'm looking forward to so many of these discussions, even with other countries. I hope they also want to just come in and, you've said we shouldn't work in silos. Women should stand up for themselves, and it's high time for women to get angry enough, but strategically. We are tired of saying, our rights, No, we are not going to the roads again. We are changing our ways, and we are going to do this as a collective in Africa. So guys, see you in our next episode. I'm glad you watched this. Happy to be, thank you so much from South Africa, Sisonke, Zinkle and Lolo. Please pass my regards to our women in South Africa and tell them, please, we are coming. So I hope to see you guys again. Let's like, subscribe and share. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.